And I think, yes, you're Tim, would you open with a word prayer? Please.
Lord, may we come in the evening hour of this day. May God bless us as we gather here together. Give us wisdom to do what is right for thy creation and also for our fellow men. Forgive of every sin, this we ask. In thy name, for Jesus' sake, amen.
Oh, have we looked over the minutes? Talk about it. We have the minutes.
Let's see, did you print one? You printed one for me. I'm gonna make another copy. No, I just made them a copy and put it in that side. This one. No, not yours. No.
I mean, I don't object anything except fix it, right?
Yeah.
You see anything?
The spot reader. I was gonna
No.
say, she's a-
Just the thing that we already discussed, so that's
check
been
your
resolved.
spot. That's yours? Should I just sign my name off on this?
Please.
Let's say we got 18% spent of the crockery. That's pretty good. So, what, are we in like a first or second quarter of that?
Which one, cracker?
I don't know how it goes
We're-
usually, but
I think we're in the, it started in August, so I think we're technically in like third-ish quarter.
okay.
Yeah.
I don't know how it goes usually, but
Yeah. That should hopefully be up for next quarter. We've gotten a lot of phone calls with folks interested in our septic assistance
I'm
program
assuming
through
there's
Patrick
something
Sands.
changed.
yeah, I'll be doing that next.
Nice.
It's gonna be my turn.
Yeah,
We just had it a little bit wrong. I had recorded it, so it looked a little different than. You couldn't tell whose voice was what, so we'd have some questions.
Motion to accept the program.
You gotta go right here for that.
Well, we reviewed it. Do you need to approve it? Or do you
I make
review
a
it now?
motion to approve minutes. So, like,
Any support? Move the support of all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
aye.
Opposed. Passed. Public comment.
no public. At least on the Zoom.
Anybody online?
No.
No, no one on Zoom. We're just recording.
Oh, staff and department reports.
So you,
Sends out.
yeah, actually, so, in your packets, you had received everyone's, their monthly report. I have a verbal report to give you after our SISMA update, so I have a few things to go over, but I'm going to, let them go ahead and, give their update, tell you a little bit about their program, what they've been working on, how the summer's going, and an opportunity for you guys to ask questions and, you know, dig in a little deeper.
Good evening, everyone. How are we?
Good.
How are you? Good, thanks. So my
Thank
name
you.
is Keely. I am one of the SISMA coordinators. And as you all know, Natalie is the other SISMA coordinator. Together, we have been doing a lot with our SISMA. So, well, today we kind of wanted to give you like a rough update, but we also wanted to give you more information on when you all are out in the community talking to landowners and individuals about invasive species. We wanted to give you information that can help you let landowners know what services we can provide to them. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. Sir? So just an overview of our current programs. So we have two main programs within the SISMA. The first one is our Hemlock Woolly Adelgid crew. So those are our forest pest technicians. We currently have two. And we will have 3 more starting this upcoming Monday. So they work on the survey and treatment of hemlock trees within our service area. The other program that we have is our strike team. So they do survey and treatment for aquatic and terrestrial invasive species. And right now we have 4 individuals. One of those individuals is a crew lead. So kind of an overview of our Hemlock Woolly Adelgid program, a little more in depth. So we have kind of 2 parts of this program. We have what we call our grant covered area, and we have what we call our for hire program. So we are following the statewide management plan for Hemlock Woolly Adelgid management for the state of Michigan, because we receive those state and federal funds to address the species. So we are following their guidelines. And they are more interested in us moving through our infestations north to south. Right now, the northern extent of that population is in Ludington. So we're working in Ludington and moving south to address those species, or to address that infestation. So the state of Michigan,
A couple years ago, we were in Silver Lake. Is it moving on us or?
yeah,
Okay.
so it has jumped quite a bit, even since I started here at the SISMA 3 years ago. It was, the northern edge was Silver Lake, and now it is, if you all are familiar with Hamlin Lake, which is just north of the city of Ludington, it's on the south side of that lake right now. So it has been jumping, but the goal of the program is to kind of create a barrier of inoculated trees so that it protects the resource, which is kind of the majority of the resource in Michigan is in the upper parts of Michigan and in the UP. So we're trying to create that barrier so it doesn't jump up and infect all of those trees, if that makes sense. So that's kind of how we are prioritizing those grant funds. For individuals who have property that is south of where we are able to use those grant funds, we have a program called our For Hire program. So this is a program where landowners can hire our crew to survey and treat their hemlocks at cost. So this is good for us. It helps us diversify our funding stream. Drew kind of created this program back in 2020 when we had some pause on our funding because of the response to COVID-19. So because we were able to kind of create this program, it kind of helped us get past those bumps, if that makes sense. This not only is beneficial for us, but it's beneficial for landowners that are outside of that grant covered area because they will have access to hiring our crew. So we currently have a wait list for this program because we're spending a majority of our time in Ludington and in the northern edge because we have those grant funds. So our wait list right now is into 2024, and this is a kind of a case-by-case basis. So generally when a landowner calls the office, I always give them 3 options. 1, we have the For Hire program. 2, this is something, if you're able, this is something that a landowner can do themselves. And 3, this is something that a landowner can hire like a private firm to do. So I lay out those 3 options and I try to work with the landowner to see what option kind of best fits what they need.
So I have a quick question about that.
Yeah.
Because this is waitlisted in 2024, but this is a revenue stream, what are the limitations that prevent us from hiring more people to do that work in order to reduce that wait list?
Yeah, and I think this is something that Megan would probably be able to speak a little bit more on, but I think just capacity wise, since we already have the 5 folks out there, especially like in the summer, we have 4 trucks, the strike team's out taking 2, the HWA crew takes 2. So just having the space to hold those people and that gear and all that stuff, I think that's kind of what is not holding us back, but kind of preventing us from focusing on that program a little better.
Would you say that's accurate, Megan? It's mostly like a office space and equipment versus a personnel issue.
Yeah, we would need vehicle, we would need additional equipment, chemical, that type of stuff to that. Yeah, so right now, because really, we do have gaps in funding. Sometimes when we are finding ourselves with a gap, these for hire programs really fill that well. And right now, I don't know that it's a program that it lives on its own. It's on its own organism. I think it really just, if I think about how the system is funded, it's funded from, this is just a random number. Let's say it's funded from 10 different grants. They're not all working consecutively. And so these for hire programs help keep these individuals busy to get that 40 hours a week. So yeah, I think that makes.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And then another just quick follow-up question on that. What are, when we give them that middle option of the landowner dealing with it themselves, what amount of training is going into that for those landowners? Is it just like a conversation on the phone? Do we go out and assess?
Yeah, so Natalie and I don't have the capacity to go out and physically go out and address each property with each landowner. Thankfully, we have an individual in the DNR who is the HWA coordinator for the state of Michigan, and part of his role is to really assist landowners with self-treatment. So I usually connect them to that person. I send them, there's some MSU extension bulletins on kind of written for landowners doing it themselves. And I kind of give them hints on what products would be, would probably be best for them to purchase. And I give them kind of guidelines on, these are laws that you have to follow. So I try to give them as much information as possible. And Natalie and I do spend a lot of time working with landowners, making sure that they fully understand this type of project before they do take it on.
Is this primarily a lakeshore issue?
Yeah, yeah. So Hemlock really hugs the coastline down like in southern Michigan all the way up to like where we are now in Ludington. Then it kind of expands across Michigan a little bit, and that's when it becomes way more widespread. So we're kind of in this sliver of a couple miles from the coastline, and that's kind of where we're working right now.
How does the landowner know he has it? When he sees the fuzz, is it too late?
No, that's a really good question. So
I see all the dead trees and that's,
yes.
there's no recovery at that point.
Right, exactly. So that's kind of what I was notating here on our wait list. It's hard because once a hemlock has degraded so far in health, there is a point of no return. That point is when that tree starts to lose about, it has about 50 to 30% of that foliage left. If you are to treat that any like past that point, there's like, it's probably not going to come out. So this photo is actually from the Appalachian Mountains, where HWA has been in that region since the 1950s, whereas here in Michigan it's only been here since like 2015, 2016. So it's a really new species still to our state. So thankfully we're able to kind of look at what other states did and kind of learn what worked for them, what didn't. But that is another conversation that we do have to have with all the landowners as well, making sure they understand what the general health of their trees are, and if they can wait for our wait list, or if they need to like get on the ball now.
So is prevention the key?
So right now we only address properties that have hemlock woolly adelgid, and it takes, once you start seeing these the white balls here, you have about 4 to 10 years before that tree will die. It will die eventually once it's infested, but it takes about 4 to 10 years, and that is really difficult when you're talking on the phone with a landowner too, because I'm not there looking at it. So a lot of times Natalie and I will have landowners send us photos, or we just try to gauge with them what the health is.
So how can we sell that better to prevent versus trying to treat? I'm a
Yeah.
prevention person, not a put out the fire person.
Yeah, so right now, because of the infestation in Ludington, so we're spending like 90–95% of our time on grants. The other percent is when we're doing our for hire programs, and at this point, we don't have the capacity because so many people have hemlock woolly algae that we have to prioritize those folks that actually have it.
It's also prioritization as far as the state management plan goes, depends on your location in the state right now. So right now, they would probably prioritize the northern front. Whereas anything south of that, you can assume has HWA if it's a hemlock tree. So I don't know if that helps at all, what you're getting at.
Well, I guess my question is we're trying to keep up with it, but
Yeah.
how can we leap ahead and stop it and then work back?
Yeah, so that's.
Prevention.
Yes, okay, so anytime we find a new infestation, in the northern edge, we will get those coordinates, Natalie makes a map, and she will create a buffer from that point, of 800 feet. And every single parcel that falls within that buffer, we will then send out a letter in the mail and say, hey, this is in the area, this is what you can do about it. We can do the survey and treatment using grant funds, so we can take care of this for you. So that's kind of how we are trying to stay ahead of it, so that it doesn't continue jumping up, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
But
that makes sense.
it is really hard because hemlock woolly adelgid is a species that can be spread by wind, birds, animals, so it's not just us that's spreading it, it's in,
Nature.
yes, so, and it, we can't control it all the time, so.
And we really don't have the capacity to treat every tree that doesn't already, doesn't have HWA up north. That's millions of trees. It's just not feasible.
So in a nutshell, we're not gonna win. We're just gonna try to hedge the bet.
So we are trying to buy our state and federal partners time with, there's a ton of research going on right now on hemlock woolly adelgid and how we can kind of combat it a different way. Because what we're doing, the treatments will only last you 5 to 7 years. So it is not permanent. This is something that these landowners will have to keep doing over and over as long as hemlock woolly adelgid is a threat to their trees. If that makes sense. So, yeah, it's a big battle, but the HWA crew up to this point, this is something that the SISMA has been working on since 2018, and we have treated over 70,000 hemlocks, which is amazing. Yeah.
So Megan, Lake Forest Cemetery and Mulligan's Hollow, there's a lot of those trees that have been marked. Are they treated too? Have they been treated?
So
They have those little silver tags on
Yeah,
them.
that's us.
yeah, so we treated Duncan, Mulligan's,
Yeah.
and the cemetery.
Okay.
So those trees have been treated 2 summers ago, 3
Yeah.
summers ago for
Yeah, I think so.
Duncan. So those trees, the chemical should be active in those trees at this point because it
Okay.
takes 12 months before it reaches the canopy. So those should be protected for another several years.
Maybe this has to do with the research that's being done, but are there known companion plants or other things like that that property owners could be planting that would help reduce the spread of it to their hemlock trees?
That's a good question.
So as far as, I think what you're getting at is kind of a two-pronged thing. So biocontrol is usually a last resort. It's not really something, you don't want to introduce a new species that's a predator to the invasive because you don't really know what it's going to do to the natural environment. And I also am thinking maybe you're trying to get a replacement for hemlock, what you could use instead of hemlock, which is something I talked a lot about in the thesis I wrote. And in our area, there's really nothing like it. It is considered a foundation species in Eastern America, and it just gives this complex vertical structure that you don't get from anything else that provides the shaded canopy that it provides a little microenvironment that you can't really get from any other kind of species, unfortunately.
So connected to that, since this is such a new issue, is there really any general awareness, unless people have gotten that letter, like they're within 800 feet of a known infestation, for people to be watching out for these? Is that an opportunity for us to spread to the wider community knowledge about what this is, so we maybe can get a little better grasp on what's happening with it?
Yeah, so the statewide management plan was written by a lot of people. it's like a committee of individuals that are involved with research, foresters, ecologists, biologists, all of these people that have kind of a specialization in this have kind of created this plan. And there are subcommittees to that. So there's like a treatment subcommittee, a survey subcommittee, education and outreach, research, and there's one more for regulatory measures. So there are groups of people that sit on each of these committees. Natalie and myself, I think, are on 3 of those committees. And we kind of talk amongst those groups of different things that are kind of coming up and issues that we're working through or new developments that we're figuring out. One of those subcommittees is education and outreach, and their kind of task is to spread awareness. There is events that we hold, conferences, workshops for landowners, for land managers. So this is something that we do try to get out there. So there's a lot of different entities, and Natalie and I did present this morning about all the partnerships that we have and how we have this huge web of partnerships with like Ottawa County Parks, we have state parks, we have all of these other entities that are also working towards management of Hemlock Valley Dojo that are also kind of putting some education and outreach materials and events up there as well. No problem. Okay, so this is my last slide, and then Natalie will get to talk. So the strike team, so they focus on, like I said, they have aquatic invasive species and terrestrial invasive species. So at this time, we are only working with 2 aquatic invasive species, and that would be European frogbit. We have 3 locations of that, which would be Pentwater Staking Area, Stearns Bayou, which is Grand Haven Staking Area, and Fisk/Reeds Lake over in Kent County. So those 3 areas are kind of where we are focusing our efforts. Frogbit is not super widespread throughout the state, but there is a lot of funding for this species. So we are trying to address it the best that we can. We work very closely with partners from Eagle to kind of make those treatments and surveys happen. The other aquatic invasive species that we're working on right now, this is also a species that you can see terrestrially, but Phragmites, we have like a USFS grant to address Phragmites along 3 different rivers, the Macatawa, Muskegon, Kalamazoo, and Lower Grand Rivers. Sorry about that. So we focus on those 3 rivers. Last fall, they did a survey, so they took the boat out and basically floated down the river. And every time they found a patch of Phragmites, they took a coordinate. Over the winter, Natalie and I mailed out to all of those landowners where we had infestations, and then we went ahead and got their permissions. And this upcoming fall, the strike team will go back out to where we have permissions and do those actual treatments.
To be fair, you are correct. We do also have funding to treat Phragmites in the Muskegon and Pentwater watershed area. But our other strike team that we fund, but they house in the Muskegon Conservation District, is handling those 2 water bodies.
Can I ask one quick question? When
Sure.
you send out those mailers and that kind of thing, what is the current response rate that we get from landowners?
Yeah, so it's different for our 2 programs. So for HWA, it's a little higher just because if you look at most of the properties that we're addressing are on the lakeshore. Those properties are being held up by those dunes, which are being held up by those hemlocks. So it's a little more alarming for those folks. But for our terrestrial invasive species, I think it's a little lower. And so last year we had grant funding for like most of our Japanese knotweed sites, whereas this year we have not as much funding, so we had to prioritize our sites. So having the change in what the cost is kind of can deter people as well, if that makes sense.
What are your location references for this Japanese knotweed stuff.
Yeah, so I'll talk about that right now for you.
Okay.
So we also hold a grant through the Michigan Invasive Species Grant Program that funds 3 projects for us this summer. It will fund the retreatment of some Japanese knotweed sites. So like you said, we didn't have funding for all of our 300 sites that we have. So we had to prioritize, and we chose to prioritize based on the number of years of investment by that landowner in retreatment. So we contacted those individuals and said, hey, like you're covered under our grant, if you would like treatment at Neil's Mailers, like she said. And then the rest of them we considered for hire this year because we don't have funding that was much. Yep. So I think typically it's fair to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, if we don't reach out to a landowner and say we have this funding for this species and we know that it's here on your property, then we probably don't have grant funding for it, and it would probably be covered under the hire. Would you say that's accurate?
Do we have a preferred list of private companies that like we know handle these things appropriately that we refer people to, or is it just like go find somebody that does it?
Yeah, so it's hard.
Yeah.
So if we were to create that list, we would have to create like a specialized training and certify all those folks.
Mhm.
So generally we say, these are the best management practices available that we know of. Other entities might have information that we don't have, but this is what we know has worked historically. And if you go hire a private firm to do this work and you're confused about their practices or you need extra help identifying what's going on, you can call us and just ask us those questions.
Addition to that, as a government entity, we are unable to make any referrals at all. So I could say something to the effect that, you know, someone asked for something, well, if I were to look for it, I would search these words, or, you know, but I can't give them a list of.
And
We
there's
typically
no,
just say that, we say
Yeah,
we're government. entity.
there's no like certifying body that handles specifically like green, like like a lead. I know lead does have some limited certification for landscaping, but I don't know if it would encompass invasive species. So I had done some research and wasn't able to find anything. But I'm just, you know, because if there's an independent organization like LEED certification for buildings, for example, that can say these are our guidelines, then that would be great. But it sounds like
Not
there's
to-
nothing like that.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to find it either, but I
No,
thought
that's
maybe
our
you guys
knowledge
knew
of
something I
Bridgeville.
didn't.
Commercial guys don't like screw around with the small people either.
Yeah, that's understandable.
So that's the first project under that grant. Our second project is funding early detection of Chinese yam and Japanese stiltgrass. So these are 2 species that they're not like Japanese knotweed. They're not widespread yet. They're just little pocket locations. And we have a couple in our 7-county service area. So those are really important to the state because you can still eradicate those. So we wrote this grant in order to target those and get them out of our area. And then the last part of that grant is aiming to try to kind of start a pilot program for the management of excavating companies. So we've been working with one in particular for a number of years, managing their property to try to stop the spread, right? Because they can't use a pile of dirt that has invasives on it. So it's beneficial to both of our goals. So we wrote a grant with that included, and the state was very interested in funding that project. So we're thinking in maybe years to come, we'll run with that a little more. But so right now it's just funding one excavating company in each of our 3 strike team areas. So really it's 3 in our 7-county area. Then anything, like I said, that falls outside of those grants that we're contacting someone about, it will fall under that for hire category, which is $100 an hour. That is based on a 2-person crew going out and doing the survey and treatment of those properties. And that's for the strike team. Right now, we do have some grants in the works still. We are still waiting to hear back from a SAGL grant that we wrote to address Japanese knotweed, Phragmites, bittersweet in our 3 watershed areas.
What's Sago?
SAGL is Sustain Our Great Lakes. And this grant was really aimed at like water quality. They were really interested in how you can improve your watershed. So that was really the target and why we chose those species specifically for that grant. We also are working on currently another grant called America the Beautiful Challenge. We are writing that grant because we have seen a need. We're writing for HWA because we've seen a need in our service area as that front has moved north. People have gotten left behind. And we are really interested in being able to address that source population down here in our Suffolk County area. So that grant isn't 100% focusing on the southern areas, but it is a step in that direction, which is kind of where we hope to go someday, as we have gotten the SISMA up north that is in Ludington to start an HWA program. So now they're kind of starting to put their fingers in the pie, and it's good. It's all good. So ways that you can help us. If you want to spread the word about our For Hire programs specifically, if someone has invasive species questions, you can direct them to us and say, you know, if you haven't heard, it might not be covered under a grant, but these are the 2 programs I know about. If you are interested, you know, give them a call. We have a plethora of outreach materials that we are never in this lifetime going to get through. So if you're ever at an event and you think, hey, this might fit some type of invasive species, I bet we have material on it that I would love to give you. We have HWA material, aquatic invasive, and terrestrial. And then also we have our business cards. If you ever get questions about anything like this, just give them my card and for your help. Yes.
Is there a better way to sell our services versus outreach material? Because I'll be honest, I don't pick up
Sure.
stuff at events. Can we get on Facebook, or is there?
So we do.
I'm not into social media,
No,
but
I get-
can
I
we
get what you're
explode that a different way?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. We do have a Facebook site. But to be honest, we don't really advertise our For Hire program because it's very not.
No, but
for
advertise
profit.
our district and what we're
Mhm.
doing.
Yeah, I'm sure there are ways that we can look into doing that better. Absolutely. But yeah. Yeah.
So, seeing we're over there in the northern part of Michigan, other conservation districts chip in, like Manistee and
Yep.
stuff like that.
So that's exactly what I was just talking about. So we actually this year had the privilege to kind of train Mason Lake conservation districts. They have a little spout of their SISMA up there working out of their office, and they have a grant for HWA, and they created a pilot program based off of our program at our guidance to do this work. So as we split from them, we hope to handle the southern areas and let them handle their service area, if that makes sense. So we're working towards
Where's
it.
Mason Lake County?
I
Mason
don't
Lake
remember.
Like,
Conservation District,
It's in
Mason
Northern
County.
Virginia.
It's
Yeah.
north of
that's-
Oceana.
I'll take a whole bunch of your stuff.
Please, thank you.
Load me up.
'Cause I know Eric Johnson.
Well, I would just say that since the For Hire thing, you know, since that kind of supplements some of our income, you know, maybe there's a way to support that a little bit more too, on top of what, you know what I mean? Because it's a way to just earn money.
And $100 an hour, does it cover our costs and actually make money?
Yeah,
But does it make money?
there is a small percentage that is.
I say, I'll bet it doesn't make much.
No,
Now,
So then
if
they're
you
gonna have a
divide
big
by two,
incentive to push it.
Yeah,
no,
We're not a
the other
for-profit
conservation.
agency.
That's the one that
we're
we're
2
2
years
years
out
out
on?
on?
Oh, no, that's the straight the $100 an hour is the straight team cost. The 2 years out was the Hemlock related eligible. Anything else?
Thank you, girls. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, that paper I gave you is a breakdown of all of the grants we have, what they cover, where they will cover that species. Just so that you guys can get a better feel of where our funding, where it works.
Is there any county in the United States that's been successful in eradicating this?
HWA specifically?
It's sometimes it's billowing out the ocean with a teaspoon.
We never get done.
It's
Yeah.
sad. you go- I go to Colorado, it's
I like that picture.
Yeah, you wonder what, wow.
So I have a few updates that I need to pass on to all of you. And the first one is we have a Region 7 meeting coming up in August 26th. Our region meetings are based on several neighboring counties that get together every year and highlight what they've been working on. It's an opportunity for the boards to meet each other, to hear what's going on in their districts, and get updated on
Local, what's going on with NACD. Somebody will talk about that. And then very often there's a recreational opportunity, like you took us paddling down the, is it the Grand?
the Pigeon River,
Pigeon River.
very slow Pigeon River.
Very slow, long
It
afternoon.
was a long afternoon. Yeah, so every year, one of the conservation districts hosts this meeting. And this year is in Barry's Court. The last two have been virtual because of COVID, so it's our first time we'll be getting back together again since I think we held it back in 2019. So that's kind of exciting. So I wanted to give you guys that date. I don't have many details other than the date is August 26th from 9 a.m. to 1:30. It will be in Barry and more details will come and to follow. So I will send you guys more, but I thought if you wanted to put that on your calendars, I wanted to get you that information ASAP. The next thing I wanted to pass on to you real quick. Sure. We have, we did hire a new, not me, the National Resource, not the National Resource,
NRCS.
thank you. Why am I so dead? The NRCS has hired a new DC. So we will have a new Heather in our office, most likely in August. So kind of exciting. She has already reached out to me and introduced herself. She has worked both in, I think it was Grayling, Michigan. Is that correct?
I'm not quite sure. I don't know if she does.
She worked in Grayling as a DC and now she's out in Colorado. And she'll be coming back here. So she's got quite a bit of experience. So we're really excited about that, especially with our RCPP and needing that additional assistance. So I have been really pleased to see that she's already reached out. That doesn't always happen. Sometimes people just show up and when it comes to NRCS and we don't know much. And so this is, I feel like it's a real positive. I'm looking forward to that. The things other things I have, I just need to touch base with several of you before we leave today. I need to talk to the finance committee to set up a time prior to our next board meeting to do a budget meeting. We have our appropriations budget coming in September. So I want to make sure we have time set aside to really dig into that before I bring it to the August meeting for a more review from the full board. So I want to make sure we touch base and get a date on the calendar. I also need to touch base with my personnel committee. We need to get some dates on the calendar for personnel reviews. And I wanted to make sure we have some blocks just kind of set aside. Not that we have to keep all of them full, but that we set aside a few dates so that we can then narrow those down. So don't leave me today until we get a few blocks on the calendar for those two committees.
When are those reviews? September?
They'll be in September. And then I think those were the basic updates I wanted to give you. And before I move too far on, I also wanted to talk a little bit about our Cultivating Resilience Field Day that's coming up at the end of August. I'm actually just gonna pass it over to Sarah for a quick second. She's gonna give you some material on this field day, and so that you guys can also be promoting it. So Sarah, I'm gonna pass it to you. You can give a little update of the agenda, what's happening, and the pieces coming in.
Well, perfect. Yeah, I just, I printed off just 2 flyers. One of them has the agenda on it, so it provides the information of what we'll be talking about that day. And the registration link is also open. It's on both of those. There's also like a phone code, so folks can just go right to the registration link on there. But yeah, I mean, we've got a really great list. It's going to be focusing on kind of the groundwater issues in Ottawa County and surrounding areas, and we've got a lot of really great speakers. So I'll just hand these out. I can print out more if you guys would like. This one just provides just real brief information and dates, deadlines, stuff like that. This one has our sponsors and partners and or at least our major sponsors, and then the agenda on it. So yeah, I guess I'll just pass them those around, and I can
This year-
also print more if you need.
This year it's at the Bonkama Farm, so Sarah Bonkama, our previous meat technician, it is her parents' farm, so we'll be out there. And
They're conservation poster children.
they are conservation poster child. So I think it'll be, I've already, the postcards have gone out to Farm Bureau. I don't know if any of you have gotten them yet, but we've had a few phone calls now for those items. So just know it's out there and get registered, tell your friends, tell your family. I think it's gonna be a fantastic event. Super excited about it. Those are my basic updates I wanted to get before we dug into the rest of the meeting. So I just want to make sure I passed on a few pieces of information.
Roundtable discussions. I hear there's some real crappy people on that after lunch.
Are you on
Yeah.
Oh, don't leave today without telling me your t-shirt size for today, Joyce.
And then I'm gone a little out of order, but the next piece on the agenda was we had talked about an opportunity for the board members to give updates on anything they've been working on or anything they wanted to bring to the table. Tim, I did put that article in your folder for you to, introduce and talk about. So this is kind of your guys' time just to say a few words,
Right?
2 or so minutes, just to kind of, anything that you guys wanted to talk about with the rest of the board.
Just passing down. This is just an article coming the Farm Bureau paper. It caught my attention. I'm a believer. I guess my question or my request is read it, think about it, and come back to the meeting with some ideas. How can we get involved, or how can we help with this challenge? Maybe there is no help, but
We think and help. That's what I
Yeah.
wrote down.
there you go.
Okay.
Yeah, it's, I live it, I see it, I've seen a lot of it since I was a kid. Education is huge. Everybody wants to live in the country, I get that, but there's gonna come a day where that's gonna be a problem, and it's more and more of a problem, so how can we spread the word? How can we help prevent it? And how can we get some outreach to turn the tide?
The county is working hard on farmland preservation. That's
Yeah,
what
but
this is about.
farmers ain't buying into that,
Yeah,
Roger, and I
they're
don't know
not.
why.
They're not, you're right. You're
So
exactly
we gotta
right.
think of a
Why-
different
gotta-
angle.
Do we?
You know
have-
what? And I think it needs to start, this education needs to go to farm.
I think it needs to go to our schools.
It needs to go there, but also, I'm trying to think, where you buy your vegetables in
Farm markets.
farm markets. Yeah, that's it. Farm markets. I think we need to go to farm markets. I think we need those truck farmers to be talking about, where does this come from? And why this is important. All those things. But then you need to
Everybody
take,
wants to support the little farm,
yeah,
but they want to build a house right next to it.
yep. And
And they
then you
want
need,
20 acres, and they don't want you to farm it because they want to put in a hunting
You gotta
preserve and yada, yada.
Talk to
Then
your
how do
local
you get to-
government. and
how do
tell
you
them
get to
put down
Costco?
stuff.
But how do you let some and not the others? I mean, you gotta be fair too, right?
No, you got consistent. Consistent. Somewhat.
you know, Wright Township has a master plan, right? They've separated some, they say we want to preserve this for ag, so they limit the building there.
Right,
But boy, if you're a landowner right on the thing and your neighbor gets to sell it for 15,000 an acre and you're committed to 6, that creates a lot of heat at the township office.
the tough one.
Roger, again, in the 2-minute time frame. Yeah, 2 minutes. Is there any validity to this group of people who have banded together and have got signs in every street corner who are
Yes,
running for office?
and you know
in our
what they're
county?
opposed to? They're opposed to farmland preservation.
Okay, is there, so that is
They
a
don't-
valid, I mean, that ain't
That's
just
a-
smoke, they have
that's real.
targeted that?
That's real.
What's the reason?
Yeah,
Their
it's
members.
Educate me, what are we talking about?
The Ottawa County impact paper.
Ottawa County,
Ottawa.
every commissioner is being challenged this year,
I see that.
but, you know, by a group of individuals who, again, is there, do they give reasons why, or?
They're all denying it, except for the one who is on the commission right now, who has said that's one of the first things they're gonna do is get rid of farmland preservation.
And which one is that?
The only one that's not being challenged.
And who is that?
Am I allowed to say and you're not allowed to say?
Oh, you
I'm
can
not
say.
as up to date on this stuff.
Kyle Terpstra.
Oh, okay. Is there anything that we're doing that they currently like? Is the question I'm gonna ask, because those
Is it-
things are really important.
Is there anything, I'm not sure why they're opposed to it other than the dollars and the time.
Because we have groundwater, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I just
yeah,
feel like
yeah.
they're,
The dollars, but we don't spend, they spend more dollars on
Oh, yes.
conservation district and extension than they do on farmland preservation, so
It's,
how is
And
that a
I don't
valid?
know if conservation district is on their radar yet, but
they
Why wouldn't
haven't
it be?
been here, have they?
I mean, is it, why wouldn't it be? I mean, if we're
Right,
against
right.
farmland preservation, and we're, must be against conservation.
good question.
A lot of
Well,
unknowns.
everybody in this room should vote then. And I do worry about that because this
Yeah.
is something that we talk about in class. I grew up in Hudsonville. Hudsonville has exploded since I was a
Yes.
kid.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Where
there's
are all those
no,
farms? Where are all those farms?
They're
when you were a
gone.
kid? Yeah.
and, but there's no one wants to take control and say, we're gonna reduce, we're gonna figure out
Yeah.
other ways to plan our town. And that's the issue is they let the developers just say, oh, well, we're gonna build this typical suburban thing instead of finding ways to reduce the usage of space and leaving more open.
he's responsible for
Right,
water
but Kelly, I'm
resources.
gonna use this as an example. If you have 40 acres and you plant 2 houses in it, to me, if you're gonna take this out of production, put 400 houses in there.
Put up
You
apartment
follow that?
complexes, have-
Right, it's-
have
This
a
is what's going on
situation.
in my district. We get 2 houses and they don't want us to farm back here because we stink and they wanna hunt and they wanna have 2 chickens and they wanna have 2 maple trees and 4 apple trees. It's like, dude, sorry, but
In Chester,
All right,
they don't
we
allow
gotta come
any of
back
that.
around here. What,
No.
Any others that have a,
anybody else got 2 minutes?
I do, I have 2 minutes. I just recently did a groundwater presentation at the Hope College for Academy of Senior Programs, HASP. I thought that went really well. This is not something I want to continue. I think the staff should take that over and do that regularly, but I thought it went really well. It was well received and that's just something that we could just continue to do all day long, I think, with what you currently have in place. So I thought that it went great.
what's your focus?
I focused on groundwater, right? Just the general overview of the groundwater situation. And then I talked about us. And then I talked about what residences can do as opposed to just, people out in the country. It's all about the suburban homeowner. So, and of course I wrote about this a few months back. So I feel like I'm seeing a lot more natives native people letting their lawns go back to, what do they call that, prairie or whatever. So I see that happening where they're mowing less, planting more native plants. I'm starting to see that more. I don't know if that could be my imagination, but it's, the word is getting out. So, so yeah, that will. And I put the cultivating resilience flyers out and took it to the library. So people are getting these in their mailbox. That's what I've been working on.
I have one thing really quickly, just general to board staff, Megan. Citizens Climate Lobby reached out to me. They're a nonpartisan group that's a 50, is that a 504?
It might be a 501c4.
It's
or
not,
something
yeah,
like
it's
that.
501c4. And they are really interested in having speakers come and talk to their group, whether in person or via Zoom, about any issues related to climate, how to be better citizens and better conservationists. So I said that I would ask and see if there was any interest. So if there is, I can connect you.
Definitely put me in touch and I'll see where it works the best.
I have a PowerPoint. I mean, everybody's got PowerPoints, but there's a basic one that I have the.
Human resources. Work
Okay.
agreements.
Yeah, so in your packet, you'll see there are 2 work agreements, or you would have seen in your, it's not in this packet, it was on your email. We did annual reviews for 2 of our forest pest technicians, both Kyle Gallagher and Haley Sweet. And so at that point in time, we offered them a raise for their year. So these work agreements reflect that raise. It all works within the budget and is paid through our variety of SISMA grants. So we just need a vote to accept their new work agreements. Or if you have any questions, I'm happy to talk about it now.
There are motions in that regard.
I have one quick question that is not meant to be.
Should we put motions on the floor and then debate, and then talk about that motion? I mean, that's the way it's normally should be done. So I guess that's why I've always been trying to ask for a motion so that we can get into that.
So
So is there a motion to support the work agreement?
I'll make a motion to support.
You got that, right? I got it. All right. Therefore, okay, discussion.
Yeah,
Fire
so
away.
this is a question. It's not meant to be a debate at all. It's just trying to understand better our funding. How are our pay rates primarily determined right now? Is it specific to the grant where they say this is how much you're gonna pay this person? Is there some kind of table that we calculate according to experience? I was just curious
Yeah.
about how all of
That's
that
a,
works.
that's a very good question. When we put these grants together, we take a look at the industry average and we begin kind of at that point. And when we write these grants, we write them in for typically a certain number of increases for the time of the grant. So most grants go 2-3 years. So we'll typically, we typically think about $1 a year is what we average, and then we go from there. It begins when we write the grant. So when things change drastically, kind of as they have in the last year or so with inflation, that type of thing, we do tend sometimes to get a little stuck. But right now, I think we're relatively competitive for the type of work we do, and if that answers your question.
Totally. Yeah, and like I said, it wasn't meant to be critical of what was in there at all.
No,
It was
it's a
just
good
trying
question.
to understand what
Yeah.
the basis was.
And a matter of fact, we used to give only 50% raises in those because we had such a large crew. But after the last 2 years and so much turnover, we were able to increase the wage and to $1 this year. So it's kind of nice.
Any more discussion on work agreements? All those in favor of said work agreement, say aye.
Right.
Opposed? Item.
Sorry, I didn't get a second. for when the-
Doug second.
Doug second.
Yeah. Callie raised.
Callie.
the motion,
Oh, okay.
Doug seconded. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I wanted to give you a update on our produce safety timeline. As you know, we have a new produce safety grant that we will be taking on here in the near future. I have spoke with one of the coordinators from the state right before I left for vacation, so it was really nice to get to talk to her a little bit and get ourselves moving. We're really excited to begin our partnership. Right now, I have just sent her our semi-final version of the produce safety grant. One of the changes that came out of our conversation is they've taken it down from 3 counties to 2. It will only be Ottawa and Kent rather than Ottawa, Kent, and Muskegon. And this was due to just the sheer number of raw produce in those 2 counties and the amount of work that would exist in these 2 counties. So that was one of the changes. Once I get that back, which I would assume I'll have back here early this week, I will be able to get that finalized and posted. I'm going to have that posted for about 3 weeks, unless, of course, I'm not getting applicants. We have several different platforms we utilize, but one of my strongest, I guess, platforms, if you want to call it that, are all of our connections. So those of our staff, our partners, our board. So you will all receive that position description, not just for your own reference, but for you to share along with any of those groups that you know that might be able to reach young professionals that are focused in agriculture. It's a tough industry for us to get the right people in. So I really try to work hard at finding the right fit. So that's where we're at with those. And so you'll see that soon.
I have a question, because there's a young woman that I know who just graduated from U of M. What kind of a degree do you need for this produce safety?
Well, you do need a 4-year degree, as we do in MEAP, but it's broad. It can be broader depending on your experience. So I'd like to see ag. I'd like to see some sort of some sort of NRM, natural resource management. Sometimes that's okay. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's a real different focus. A lot of the NRM I see tends to be a little bit more invasive actually than you would see with the ag focus. I'm not as specifically concerned about the degree itself as I am about the experiences behind it. If they're good communicators, there's a lot of sales that goes on in this, but you've got to have knowledge. And also, if you have connections within these counties, that's enormous. So I think there's a lot of pieces and parts that could come into play when it comes to this position. It's really open, other than the fact that you do have to have a degree.
She's just a newbie right out of school, so I don't know.
I don't know, but there's definitely opportunities when it comes to our crews, and that gives people a really good experience when they're trying to decide where they want to go with their natural resource degrees.
I'll probably kick her your way and see.
Yeah, just see, and let's get a resume on file. Okay. Yes.
The way grants are done now, Matt, are different than we were here last. You're gonna get the grant document emailed to you, and you're gonna digitally sign it and then kick it back.
I never see it. I don't even know it's been sent to you. So you're gonna have to really watch that. You're gonna get 3. You're gonna get the MDOT, you're gonna get the MEAP grant, the produce safety grant, and the state operations grant. You need to sign them all, and then I'm gonna ask you to print them all, because otherwise, it's like weeks before I see the grant. I don't love this process. It's missing a,
Yeah, why did it that? I mean, is there a certain?
To simplify things for the state.
but
I
just
mean,
know,
When they
Right.
push that button,
That
it
makes
can't
it
go to
so much
us
better.
too?
no,
That
just
ain't
you.
simple?
We howl with that.
But I will let you know when I know enough. Hey, you better pay attention because we get this. And so,
Perfect.
yeah.
I don't understand why you all worry about that.
And then lastly, once those 3 weeks up, I would say probably the first, second week of August, I'll do a first set of interviews. This first set of interviews, I'm forming a committee. And then the second set of interviews will probably be in the 3rd week of August. I hope to have someone in the role maybe end of September. So that's kind of the idea. That's my timeline. It's very adjustable, but dependent on lots of factors, but that's the idea.
This is exciting.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
So I just wanted to give you an update there. So I am in need of two things with MEAP. When we were talking about our committees, I failed to think about our MEAP committee. So Dave Pyle had sat on this committee since I've been here. Our MEAP and our produce safety will need, so I guess I should say this might be a MDARD committee. They sit on these goal setting meetings with our MEAP technicians and our produce safety technicians once a year, providing feedback on goals and deliverables for those grants, and assisting them with any ideas to move forward and to increase their productivity. So we do have a board member that we'd like to sit on that committee. It consists of a board member, Jack Konorick, myself, and typically 4 or 5 other key partners. We have Farm Bureau, there's an individual from the Young Farmers. Why is this in my mind? Anyway, we have several people. Several people sit on that as well as MSUE. We have 2 people that sit on our committee with them, but a board member is necessary.
Just one of our board members?
Just one. And not that I am saying it can't be anyone, but typically a board member that might have some farming background is usually a little bit more, give some assistance. I'm not saying that not anybody could do it. I'm not saying that, but I think that could add some value. The second, because of this piece, the second piece we have is a cost share committee. Within the MEAP grant, there has been, and hopefully will continue to be, a small amount of cost share that we can spend on producers. We usually get about $3,000 of cost share. And to add to that, we do have a small pocket of cost share that has still been sitting in our till from way before me, that was meant for MEAP cost share prior to us having MEAP cost share that the county had allocated to us. So it's restricted for cost share, and we hadn't used it. It's not all of it. So when these cost share applications come up and we get these, we get their application and the ranking and all of that, in the past, what we have done is our technician will put together the description of the practices, the application, the ranking, that type of thing. And then she would send it to our cost share committee, which would consisted of our DC, which was Heather Barbancourt at the time, and Dave Pyle and myself. Between the 2 of them, they would then take a look at this, ask questions that might be pertinent. You know, how far away from it is it from this local body of water, or, you know, just getting a few other pieces of information. And then at that point, we would give them thumbs up or thumbs down, and then it would then give me the ability to then process to that next step. So what I'm hoping is that one of you are interested in assisting the district within our MDARD. I'm going to change it from MEAP to MDARD because it will consist of.
So
produce
this
safety
one
as well.
person is gonna do all what you talked about, produce, meat,
Yes, it'll be 2 goal
cost
setting.
share.
It'll be 2 goal setting meetings. So you have 2 physical meetings you'll need to come to once a year, and typically in October. The cost share stuff is all via email. So Dave would read the emails and he'd call us because he didn't love to type back, but you just have to pay attention to the email to at least get it. So, you know, if one of, Tim, you do pretty good at responding on emails. Matt, you do better at calling. But if it, you know, that type of thing.
It's good you know the strengths and weaknesses.
I do. I know how you all, I know how you all
I
are.
text more than I reply.
Actually, you do text most, but you look,
I
just
try to-
know, that's the only other commitment would be that you sit on those committees twice a year. It's usually 3 hours, you get fed. And it's in October, so you have 2 of those. And then just whatever random emails you get throughout the year. There is no cost share in produce safety, so that is not gonna be an issue there. So if you wanna think on it, think on it. I don't particularly have to have an answer tonight. If you wanna ask more questions, ask more questions. But it is a need,
Why
so.
is everybody looking at me?
Because you're not ahead
There's
of
Because
other,
he's going
other farmers on committees.
So, we got you in
Matt's
mind,
gonna
Tim.
jump on that.
I thought I was on it along with one other member, so I'm actually, I thought
I,
I'll do, as chairman. But
I said, well, I mean, you can be on it, I guess, if it was another
Would
member.
it be helpful for you, Matt, if I took that position?
Well, I'm not gonna say, no, I want. I think you'd be a good player.
I just
And
like the
again, It's
idea.
only 2 to 3 times, she says 2, but probably.
You told me when I signed up for this, it was painless.
He lied.
Painless. They're green, you're gonna feed you.
Okay.
I ain't saying you don't get that at home, but.
I will be willing to do that.
Excellent. All right, keep you in the loop then. That's all I have for that. And then the next piece I have for you guys is,
RCCPP.
we have been just busting it in our RCPP program. Man, those guys have been working so hard. And not only have they been working hard, they've been doing it without a DC and without a grant coordinator. We've been really, I'm really proud of our team, because I don't think most districts would have gotten as far as we did with those hurdles. Right now,
Hurdles, I got to the finishing line 2 different times and still had to redo the thing at the last hour.
well, that's.
And I'm not
that's-
hollering about our technicians
that's
that all got
NRCS.
kicked out from up top. I'm like,
Yeah, it's their program. That's
Good
different.
kids.
So I'm just so proud of it.
I-
Even
like I
with
say,
all
I
those
think
hurdles.
our
NRCS
people
is-
down here on the ground who are doing the work
are good.
bent over backwards to make it all happen.
It can be really, it's upsetting for our technicians when they run into that too, because then they're the ones that have to go back into the field and talk to the producer and have to, go, all because a program wasn't written right, or things didn't go smoothly, or they didn't
Things
know
were
all
on
the
the checklist,
rules, or there wasn't on the checklist that was
This is
supposed to
what
be
they
on the
call
checklist.
red tape.
Yes,
Yeah.
So you're in the program?
And I'm sorry, but most producers would have said, take it
Good.
right,
we
because
have
it was
15 applications.
very minute, I'm sorry, stupid
Yeah, stuff
things.
that you have to
that,
do.
Like I say, our team handled it fine, but it took a
There
lot
we
of
go.
extra mine and them to, yeah. So anyway.
So right now, all of our conservations plans have been officially signed by their respective landowners. NRCS State Office is currently processing the necessary paperwork associated with the contract obligation process. They'll review conservation plans for corrections. Next Wednesday, July 20th, will be our advisory council meeting. So any of you that are interested in hopping on our Zoom meeting, that's at 1 o'clock, and you'll hear all of the updates in more detail to what has happened over the last, since we've opened the application period in April.
And we've already gotten an invitation for that, right?
I-
That's the one that we
yes,
got for
yeah.
that. I'm just trying to make sure I'm not missing any.
Yep.
We have a total of 15 applications that were approved. 7 are here in Ottawa, 8 are here in Kent. Ottawa contracts totaled $379,678, where Kent contracts came to $409,839, for a total of $789,515. So pretty awesome in our first year. Some of the practices are brush management, conservation covered crops, forage crop harvest management, prescribed grazing, reducing tillage, soil amendments. We have some fencing going in, some livestock pipeline, some grass waterways, some mulching, and some tree and shrub establishments. I'm gonna pass this on to you guys. This is something that Alex wrote up for us, so you guys can have some information. So I'm gonna pass it around.
Do you know offhand which communities in Kent County? Or like is Sparta seeing like a?
No, so
who- like
the
which-
map is just a sliver,
Right.
so there must have just been enough in that sliver.
It's all Ottawa and just a little bit of Kent.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just those are all-
And I think
don't have a map
from
up.
what Alex and Kyle told me, since the applications aren't fully processed yet, we can't actually show where they are, just because of
So like another-
landowner privacy and stuff like that, but.
I'd be willing to bet there's some bleed over going from Chester to Sparta, so, because I think that's where some of that's gotta be. So I'm just curious.
I just want to pass it on to you. So if you have any questions, please throw them my way. If I can't answer them, I will get Alex back to you.
What is forage crop harvesting management? I don't know what that
That's
is.
a great idea. I don't have any ag people in here
I
right
wondered
now.
what that one was myself.
That would be a Kyle and
That's a
Alex question.
Carolina
That's,
question.
it's a relatively new practice with NRCS. Kind of like soil amendment is pretty new. That's gypsum. And to my knowledge, I don't know what it is. It's so new.
Is it like regenerative ag type? Or is it like more like permaculture?
No, it's, I don't know.
I will absolutely have Kyle get hold of you.
Thank you. Or this is good.
I have this on
Just order
because,
both.
sorry.
Read both houses, everything.
Financials. The fun stuff. We didn't need to vote on any of that other stuff,
No,
right?
it's just-
stuff. for us.
yep. So, let me just pull my notes. I'm looking at the same thing
Seems
here.
like it's next month.
First, I have to say, I am loving already the second Tuesday because I was actually able to finish our financials. Like, I'm not giving you guys, total
I was
estimate.
nervous as heck last Tuesday. I'm like, going, oh, did I get this meeting right? No, it's next week, it's today, it's next week. So,
so the first thing you guys are looking at is your grant cover page of all of our recent, our updated grants. You can share with me, but I need to look at a little bit. Right now, the amount spent is up to date as of June 30th. So that I do this piece, this actual up to date amount spent quarterly. It's almost impossible for me to do it monthly, but you guys have a really nice vision right now where we're at in each one of our grants. Then if you take a look, I'm just going to go to the next page before I go down to our little closed door fund for your profit and loss. The first thing I like to always show you is the comparison from one year to the next, partly because I want you to see, I want you to take a look at the income and the expenses that we have done in this first of 3 quarters compared to 4 last year. And I see us surpassing again the capacity for funding that we had the year prior. This is one fiscal year, and as you all know, and as I have told you all in the past, that our grants aren't all based on fiscal years, and so there is carryover, as this is just what was brought in and spent in this fiscal year. That doesn't mean that's the whole grant program. So if I were to pull out just one of the SISMA grants, it would look different, and it would have a different time frame for me to give you a real snapshot, which is why we do this, because it helps you see what's left and how long. This gives you a snapshot of what we've been spending, where we've been spending it, and where we're bringing money in. On the flip side of that, you'll see our balance sheet. The balance sheet tells you what we have in checking and savings, how much we have in receivables, and right now, because we are reimbursing, our receivables are quite high. And at this point, this is really going to be the closest that you guys are going to get before the end of the fiscal year for a really accurate number of where we would be if I reimbursed everything today. I like to, if I wanted to give you a number for how much the district has. So everything is in there. All of our reimbursements are in there. This is right up to date up until the last payroll, which would have covered the first 2 weeks of this month. So other than those 2 weeks, this is as accurate as you're going to get. It accounts for some of our restricted fund balances, which includes the meat cost share and the education for critical June areas. I take the total equity number here, this 211. 642.57, and that is the number I put over here in your close the door fund box. So I take that balance, and then I take a few things out that actually that are kind of restricted in themselves. I just didn't restrict them in QuickBooks because they don't have legal restrictions. We have some suggested service costs that I take out of that fund balance that actually belong to different conservation districts. Some of the funding that we've raised for for-hire work, as we will put that back into the for-hire program. We're the treasurer for the West Michigan Conservation Network, so you see that little $644. And we have one advance currently with our our National Association of Conservation Districts grant, and that's the grant that funds Kyle. And so we have a little advance there. So when I take all of that out of our fund balance, the district, if it were to reimburse everything, we would have about $150,000 in its till, and that's after we purchase vehicles. That's pretty cool. So that's in there. Also, you'll find your reconciliation for both checking and savings. I put that in your folder. I talked to a few of you about cashing your checks. Matt, you have a check you're sitting on for $64.96. You're the only one I didn't talk to. Cash it. Or I need to rewrite it.
This one?
A second one from, yeah, last month. If you don't have it, I'll reprint it and I'll give it to you.
Must be your cash flow is pretty good, man.
All right.
I have to
Gave
talk
it
to
to
the
his
cash
wife.
flow. We have to talk to the lady who goes to the bank.
So those are those items. Do you have questions
Wanna
on,
look at my
on where
mailbox
we're
in the
at
truck.
financially and anything on these sheets?
Still doing okay, even though the native plant sale didn't go as well as you hoped.
It's fine. I mean, what I didn't account for was our time.
Is that
So,
what this means, that this didn't go well?
yeah, I didn't account for our time. So I did, that's coming up. So
Well, that's
let's
like
vote on,
farming, Megan.
what's that?
That's like farming.
I know, no time in there. But
What do I need to say?
I just need a vote for paying our bills. You don't need to sign anything.
So moved.
It has been moved and seconded. All those in favor of paying the bill, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
You don't need no money payment.
Not right this second.
Pay the bills.
yeah.
It passed.
We're waiting for some reimbursements. So I did put in your packet our spring native plant reconciliation. I did mention to you guys that there was a lot of bumps in this sale. What I didn't account for was our time. You know, I probably had 2 extra days of driving, so did Ben, so did Kyle. Or Alex, I didn't account for their time. I did account for their mileage. But, so with that said, we had a revenue of $4,464.83. A little lower than I would have liked to see it. But as far as without our time, it's not bad. We're gonna make some adjustments on what we do in the spring, especially because I'll be lacking, I won't be lacking, but I won't have the same type of help from Lexi, as she'll be at the end of her pregnancy, and that's just a lot of physical work. So we're gonna change things up a little bit and see how we do with some changes and adjustments. We might just do a day of sale. I want pre-orders and maybe just have some small garden kit pre-orders. So that would save a lot of hassle. Is one of the things I'm thinking. The income won't be as good. The revenue will not be as good that route, but it will still have some revenue, probably about half of this. And then we'll just have to kind of boost it up as we go forward next year. So I wanted to include that. I also had the annual celebration reconciliation on here. Now, I wrote this prior to going to vacation. And what I did realize was that there are several charges on our card that we did for the annual meeting. And I didn't get to reconcile the way the card cycle runs. It only goes to about the 20th of the month. And so there are some things on there that were paid after the fact. I couldn't reconcile quite correctly. So I'll get that to you guys next month. But it's pretty much even. I think it was like maybe $30 under. And that's only because we threw in some extra stuff.
Did you get that outstanding sponsorship check?
I did.
Okay.
So we are all good. And then we wrote thank you letters, and Rivka picked those up and sent those out. So that's awesome. So that all wrapped up really nice. There's nothing to vote on there. And then the last piece is our appropriation budget, which is just around the corner, and why I want to set up a meeting with you guys with our financial committee. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about appropriations, as I know this can sometimes be confusing. So bear with me as I talk to you about that. I am going back to our operations manual, so you all have a copy of this. But I did want to just talk about it for a second, because it is one of those things that I think can be really a little bit confusing. So our appropriations, we are a government entity, and because we're a government entity and spending federal dollars and taxpayer dollars, we have to appropriate our funds every year, and we appropriate our funds through you. So what happens is I will put together a budget for our programs, and then each one of those programs falls into a government entity. Each one of our programs, their funding comes from different entities. So whether it comes from federal government, state government, local entities, the county government. I I have to take those grants. So if we have 5 grants that come from the state, I take the total of those 5 grants, I appropriate it for our budget, that this is how much we're gonna get that year. And then I have to take those 5 grants from the state and I have to appropriate what we're gonna spend. And the spending is a little bit of a guesstimate. As some grants are simple, MDARS are simple, they're yearly grants, I can appropriate them almost to the dollar. Grants that aren't simple are cost share grants like our 319. Those are hard because I don't know how much cost share we're gonna spend every year. So typically I take whatever it is that we have left, I divide it by how many years we have left, and we'll see where we get to. If we are under on our appropriations, I have to come in and I have to present it to you, we vote on it, we change it, we have to take appropriations, which we have done. Or if I get new funding streams, I have to bring it to you, I have to say, hey, we got these grants, I need to change our appropriations budget, we do that. This can be a real bear, so it's a lot of work to put these together. As we have a lot of funding streams, you see that on our sheet. And what I show you on our sheet doesn't include, trees and all the extra side pieces we do. So this can be it's a bear. All local unit, we as a local unit of government then have to, in August, I will bring this to the financial committee. We will spend some time on the district budget and coming up with our operations budget. And then I will give them an overview on where I'm at with the grants. I will then come to you in August at our August meeting, and we will have, this meeting will be longer, so do expect it. We will talk about the details of that appropriations budget, giving you all time, one, to understand it, ask questions, any thoughts or advice you have, and then at that point, to take it home, think, whatever, however you want. We then come back in September, and then this budget has to be voted or approved for us to be able to spend any money by October 1st. If we do not complete that by October 1st, we cannot spend any money. So that's the idea of this budget process. I'm gonna kind of read through this, but I'm not gonna do that. I want to make sure I didn't forget anything.
It's in the manual, right?
It is in the manual, it's chapter 9. So go ahead and take a look at that if you'd like. So this will be one of this as well as our annual business plan are going to be 2 of my biggest, and hiring a new produce safety are going to be my biggest focuses over the next 45 days. So this will be what I'm working on.
Lucky we got you all vacationed up.
You got me all vacationed up, yeah, something.
Time flies.
Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to go over that. I wanted to let you know what's coming. I kind of had hoped vacation and just graduation and all the stuff that happened over the last 2 months. I didn't get to quite where I wanted. I wanted to bring in a real preliminary draft, but I didn't even get close to getting there. So I'm not doing that today. I just wanted to give you guys a heads up. All right. Do you guys have questions on that?
And that's what you need to talk to finance committee about.
Yeah. And mostly because I want to make we need to kind of solidify our district budget. So then I can work around that. So that is it with financials. Do you guys have any questions on those? Actually, I think this is relatively simple because they had already talked about the grants and I left out one, so bad me. We're waiting on the Sustain Our Great Lakes grant, the SAGA grant for invasive species management that Natalie and Keely had talked about. So that is just pending and we're waiting to hear back from that grantor. The SISM is also in the process of preparing America the Beautiful Challenge grant, which they talked a little bit to you guys about today. So that was the one that I did not add to this sheet. I just feel like we're preparing something at all times, so I can't believe I didn't have something. And then we're executing the MEEP outreach funding. So Karen had wrote an additional grant through MDAR to get a little bit of extra funding for our field day. She was awarded that grant and we have an extra $1,500 for our field day. That's super exciting. Coming down the pike, as Ben comes back, Sarah and Ben's main focus will be on our upcoming 319 grant proposals that will be looking for initial RFPs in August. And then final applications in October. And when I talk about our 319 grants, I'm specifically focusing on the Pigeon River watershed. So if all goes smoothly and our plan gets accepted, we will be eligible to apply for 319 funds as we have in Crockery Sand, Bass River, and Deer Creek for the Pigeon. It's very preliminary. I can't give you any more detail to that, but that will be our next big grant that we're going after. Other things I see coming down the pike, there will be another opening for the following fiscal year, MISGP for invasive species management. Those are probably the two that I know that are right around the corner. Lexi and I are working on looking for funding opportunities for our raindrop rescue program, which is all the like the native plantings that we've been doing with schools and outreach. So those are probably the big three that I would say are coming down the pipe.
Is that going well?
The raindrop rescue or just grants in general?
No, the school outreach and the native plants.
Yeah, actually, Lexi gave a fantastic, presentation on it at our staff meeting 2 weeks ago. And it's going like wildflower. We by a wildfire. Schools love the education, like wildflowers. Yeah. They love the education, and we've been able to find cost share funding relatively simply. Businesses want to support this type of stuff. I mean, they geek out about it because not only are they educating, there is a end result and a sign that goes with it, and so it's almost a no-brainer for us to get the funding for the plants. It's just the funding for our time, and so we're tying it in with the groundwater issue. As we all know, it's not Purdue. We have gone to, because it's in our wheelhouse, we focused on producers when it came to the RCPP. The producers are a very small portion of why we have the groundwater issues we have. So much of it is just it's the development. And that goes down to individual landowners, residential owners, and how can they make changes in the way they do things in their everyday life to preserve water. And the best way to reach them is through our kids, is through education. And so this is, I really feel like we can probably find a funder that, because of all these conservation concerns, that will really like this proposal. So that is what Lexi and I are working on. Part of what we would love to see for her as she comes back from maternity leave is that she can go into this role as a technician with mostly this as her workload and taking her hours down, where then I would just have a part-time assistant for the other pieces that I do. And that's kind of our vision. It's very, very beginning as we're forming what we want and how we want to see things as we transition. But with her horticulture background and the connections we've made over the last few years, I do feel like we have some promise there.
What does
So-
that sponsor look like? I mean, what are we talking for dollars? What would it take?
Yeah, so Lexi and I kind of did I should say Lexi did a little bit more than me. Preliminary ideas, I think, was a 3-year funding was what you were looking at.
Yeah, so bringing this all under one funding umbrella would make it a lot easier. And so when we're looking for grants for this, we've been looking for funding sources that would do a $200,000 grant to cover 2 to 3 years of funding for this program. That's kind of our hope. That's what we're starting out with.
Okay, so you're looking for more of a grant versus a sponsor. Okay, I thought I heard sponsor at one
Sponsor was
time.
more like the cost share. So we have been able to get sponsors to pay for the plants that go in these projects. So when we did the ferry, well, no, it's not East Ferry. Well, no, it's not.
So Ferry was
That
the
was a grant.
Wildflower Association of Michigan. That was a small grant. All these schools have different needs, and so it makes it really difficult. So there are schools, they all want native plants of some kind. There are some that are interested in rain barrels, some that are interested in bioswales or rain gardens. So they all have different needs based on what's going on at their school property, and then what programs they already have for their children. So there is a school who wants to do
outdoor science with these kids, but they have a class that is entirely wheelchair bound. And so they are looking for ideas on how we can bring that science on conservation to those children. So these schools all just have different needs, and it would be a lot easier if it was all under one umbrella, because right now I'm going to sponsors and corporations that have expressed to me that they are interested in funding these types of things. And I'm having to parse and piece out each project individually. And that also makes it more difficult for me to give these schools a timeline. So individual project sponsorships have just, it's just a little.
It does tie in so nicely with the groundwater, the groundwater concerns, and it really fits in well with the master plan for the county and what they're trying to accomplish. So not only do I feel like one, it has all those good components, but it also fits that. So the more and more we continue to be tied into that master plan with the county, the stronger our partnership becomes, and they are so essential to who we are, that's part of why it's been on our radar.
Is there a way to tie farmland preservation and the farmer story to that narrative?
So that actually, yes. And I think that we need to dive in a little bit more about that. Within the RCPP, we have part of that groundwater funding, part of that piece was specific to farmland preservation. So there's money set aside for producers to help them through that process.
No, not the producer, to the children.
The children.
To get that message out.
Right. I think yes, probably. Yeah, if it all fell under that if it all fell under the groundwater, yes. It would just be, how we incorporate that into the classroom. So as long as we could tie it in.
School come to me specifically. Berry Elementary, they have a STEM program, and so they do this thing with the children where they are given a problem by an industry and they need to work to solve it. I did talk to that teacher about doing something that was related to farming, and he was interested. So that's the one intro that has so far.
So many ideas, and I think that it just keeps ballooning. So I think it's a possibility. And I think we could also pull it in with some of the SISMA work. I think there's just a lot of, it really integrates nice into who we are. And it could be something that in 2023, when we go back to the county, that it's something that we are also looking for, maybe an expansion of that funding based on this type of program because it aligns with A, B, and C.
Check with Brady Rogers.
I was just gonna comment on that, but I thought, nah.
There's so many unknowns. All I know is that I continue to try to be tied to the county as much as I can. I want to be,
I think
critical.
Paul would do that. Becky would do that.
they know about it. And so they just haven't had the capacity to take it to that next level, but I think that maybe we can. So,
I'm interested in rain barrel workshops.
We've done
we have done them.
I know that
For
there's,
years, we had so many barrels out back here. I had to go get the
Okay.
barrels in my trail. Dead frogs up.
okay, so they were a pain in the butt. Because I just think that there's interest in that. Obviously, there's some logistics.
There's some logistics, but yes, I think alternatives.
Becky Heige is the queen of barrels, yeah. It was a job. And people did show up. Oh, yeah.
People love them, and they would decorate them. paint
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
Barrels, so she didn't have to do the program. She had everybody drilling holes and going to the hardware stores.
District just did something super cool where they had barrels already built. They partnered with a local craft brewery and people came out for brews and barrels. And they all got to
That's
decide.
awesome.
It was super successful. For
So
them.
there's lots of ideas.
Who did that?
Muskegon Conservation District.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, like I saw it on their Facebook and I was like,
I know, there's so many things we like that, we just need money. So, yeah, those are what's going on in our head. As far as like what's coming down the pike. There'll be other stuff that pops up that we may look for and apply for and put our hat in the ring. That didn't even make sense, but this is basically what I see coming.
All right, what's next?
That
I
is,
lost my place.
I have no
I was gonna
correspondence.
say,
You did have some PA 116s, which I didn't have prior to leaving. So,
Let's say no, that's-
I have two questions with that.
Yeah.
Number one, the amount that they put on that application,
mhm.
does that affect the tax rate?
no, it's either in or out. The way I understand it.
So if I put my property in and it's worth 10,000 an acre and I put it in at 5,000, that doesn't affect the tax rate.
Yes, it would. I would assume it would.
So
Isn't it tax? And it's
I don't have it in front of me, but to my knowledge, he's got 40 acres for 250,000. To me, that's too cheap. As a farmer, I'd buy that today.
Good question. I don't have an answer.
You're like,
I guess how
I don't
does-
want to know this man. Can I buy your land?
Well, PA 16, someone else sets all that.
They do. We're
all-
such a weird,
I mean, well, I
you're
mean,
such a weird pass-through
you can't put
entity.
your number on it. Yeah, you sign up how many acres you want, but you don't say.
They ask for the value.
Yeah, but where did they come up with that?
Oh,
I do-
the
That's my
The
question.
value still comes out of the assessor from the township. comes
Yeah,
out with
that's
the value.
the
Yeah.
assessor.
And that's, you know, because.
That's
PA
what they use?
Yes, oh, yeah, it ain't just,
Well, then the
hey, I
assessor,
think, you
then
know,
the assessor needs a,
well,
if it's like
they will,
SUVs,
when-
they're usually
they will when it,
low.
when this hits, you know.
Okay.
You know, when it hits the official, I mean, again, we've signed them for years and said, you know, what.
All we do is check the application,
You
like
know.
it's filled out right. Our
Yeah.
pass-through net, the
Yeah,
entity,
this is
the
the
job we
weirdest-
have is weird,
This is
you know,
the weirdest.
what is our
program.
role?
to
Yeah.
check the
No
application.
one has ever been able to give us an answer.
Basically, to make
that's-
sure
that's-
everything's filled out.
Go
you
ahead,
know?
Jack.
Typically, when I seen district chime in, it's when the landowner's parcel is known to somebody on the board and there's something incorrect. For example, somebody has a 60, they want to put that in
As an 80?
as an 80. And, you know, somebody says, you know, it's only 60. I mean, it's usually a clerical error, rarely does somebody try to, you know,
Right.
pitch one past it, but that's the role that I've seen is, you know, when the board looks at it and said, let's go
So,
back. and
so
take
when the farmer puts of the amount, the value, and that has no ramification,
No.
that's my question. The second
I
question,
think I'm sorry to interrupt. I think farmland is worth 5,000 an acre and residential is 10,000 an acre.
there's a lot of farmland in my neighborhood selling for 9.
I think it,
And
and
15.
that's what I know from
Said
Chester.
versus market value are two different
If you
things.
have some, if
yeah.
you have some next door in Chester for sale for 5, call.
It's a little expensive up there.
Okay, my next question is, on the letter to the township, we keep getting it wrong. It's not Maureen Carmody anymore, it's Teresa Frank. I think we need to do due diligence and make sure that we send that to the right people.
Yes.
The one was Frank. The other one-
Township
Carmody.
clerk is not Maureen Carmody anymore.
Oh, we have Miss Frank on that one.
I was gonna say, yeah,
That's right.
Franklin. too.
That's right,
Whatever.
township.
I'm just gonna white it out.
Actually,
So
I
they
ended
sent
up
it to-
calling Sam
Yeah, that's fine.
Armock's wife for flowers for our event. And I was like, are you the same Armock's? You know,
There's
just kind of-
Armox everywhere, I don't know.
It was the same one. They're
Interesting,
like, oh, all right.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, well, I will adjust that.
thank you.
Well, is there a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Amen.
No, that's not.
Done.